All right, thank you. All right, so we're going to talk about a concept which, is not one of those things where you have to be in a bad state of mind to learn from it, but it's one of those traps that we all get into mentally at some point in our life. And the reality of kind of how the mind plays a trick on us. So I'm a clinical psychologist, means I'm trained with individuals on the realm of performance. So people who are really, really struggling to people who are doing well. But I focus 100% of my practice now on athletes and performers and competitors and business owners. Because to me, it's an area that we haven't spent a lot of time is, it's easy to look at somebody and say, what does it take to get better? But what we now understand is that every one of us who are competing in our world, the demands of this world are at a point that we've never really seen. The exhaustion and the mental fatigue that we're having are at a place that is just unbelievable. We never turn off. Like if you go on vacation, we went to Hawaii back in May, and it was stressful every morning because I'd wake up 6 hours after all my clients woke up, and by the time I woke up, I had 15 messages. And I'm on vacation, and they all know I'm on vacation, but if they need something, they call. So I'd wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and be like, the first hour or two, I'm putting out fires, and I'm on vacation. So then the answer is, well, turn off your email, turn off everything else. But you can't do that, because how do you make your dinner reservations? How do you check in for your flight? How do you look for places to go? It's all integrated. So our minds are constantly on edge. If you think about 3 generations ago, it's not that long ago. But what would happen is before we had all this technology, you'd go work, you'd come home, you'd have dinner, you'd turn on a light or listen to the radio and read and relax, and your mind had a chance to decompress. We don't do that now. We have everything integrated, and everything is on, and what we're doing is we're just hitting our brains with this absolute fire of attention and distraction. So when you come into work in the morning, are we actually performing at 100%? Probably not. And so I know with my athletes, one of the biggest draws that they have and one of the biggest stressors they have is social media. And yet we all in this room live and leverage social media. But the absolute troll that says one thing back to you will get you. And Emma posted something a couple weeks ago where we were talking about the transfer rates. And this is my team, Emma, Philip, and Bhrett. She posted something when I got on an airplane, and I turned on my phone once we got about 10,000 feet, and I had just as unbelievable response. And what we said was, people are transferring at an unbelievable rate in college sports. And Emma was a college athlete, I was, Bhrett was, and we understand why. It's hard, it's miserable. Well, people interpreted it from a racial standpoint or that they were being abused. And all we said was, don't blame somebody if you transfer. And the messages I got, it just took me over. I was like, oh my God. And so for the rest of the night, I'm like, I got this one journalist from DC who was like, that's a racially charged tweet. And I'm like, there's nothing racial about it. But now all of a sudden it's in my mind, I can't let it go when I should be calming down for the night, right? So the mind has this amazing little tool. But your mind has one major purpose. Y'all know what it is? Survive. So if right now we had a large bang go on outside, our mind would automatically start processing, oh my God, what is it? What do we have to do? The problem with that is that hardwiring approach that our mind has had in place for many years isn't effective anymore. So it misinterprets things. But the most valuable source of what we have within all of us is our ego, our pride, our self-esteem, our self-image. So the mind misinterprets all that. So think about this. Why, if you look at a paper and somebody gives you feedback on a paper or a draft you guys write up and write it in red ink, what's the initial perception? Bad. If they do it in blue ink or green ink, it's got a different perception. But it's automatically a critique. Okay? So that's the way our mind works. So a couple months ago, about a year ago, I started thinking this idea, and I had clients coming in to see me, and I'm like, man, everybody's stuck in this world of suck. Nobody ever comes in to see me and is like, man, I'm doing great. Things are awesome. Can I just get more awesome? It's usually like, this sucks. And I'd look at him and go, you're flying private, you've got kids, you've got $40 million in the bank. Why does life suck? And then at the same time, I'd have people come in and who didn't have all that, who were struggling, and their life sucks. And it's like, why are we all stuck in this suckville? So let's talk about it. So one of the things that we've all tried to study over the years in psychology is happiness. Happiness is weird. We don't really know it until we don't have it anymore. When you're in the midst of happiness, Most people are like, well, I could do it better. The mind just can't stop. It goes, man, I'm doing good. Things are good. Like if we said this year, you guys here had a great year, and you guys come down and say, we want to do exactly like we did last year. No better, no worse. I'd say, why don't you want to grow? Why don't you want to get better? Why don't you want to develop? Like, but I was happy. But if you do it again, you're not going to be as happy. Think about this. You go for a great dinner at Perry's or something like that. You have an amazing meal. You go back the next time, is it as good? Never, because you've already experienced it once. The mind can never be happy over time. So it's an adaptive thing. It's a good thing, but it also messes with our psyche and our emotions. Okay? So when we look at jobs and we look at people working, job satisfaction is a very unique thing. If we go back to multiple generations ago, looking at the older folks in here, Mark and me and guys like that, is when people took jobs, they came into jobs and they stayed with you for a lifetime, right? People went into a job and it was this idea that you went into a job and you worked there and you worked your way up. So when I was in college at LSU back in the early 90s, they used to compare and contrast two companies, IBM and the new upstart Microsoft. IBM was this old school place. You showed up in wingtip shoes, blue pinstripes, and you carried a briefcase and you always had a red tie on. They had a dress code. And they came out with this thing of Microsoft. And the whole thing of Microsoft was you can work wherever you want to. You can work on the roof if you want to. Like they have Coke machines in their building, like literally. Well, do you guys look at Microsoft as the upstart innovative company now? No, now they're the establishment. So then Google comes out, we got slides and bikes. And now you got people who don't even have workplaces, right? So job satisfaction is always defined by many different factors. If there's a reason why Google has sleep pods in their building though. You know what that is? Anybody worked at Google? Okay. You know why they have sleep pods in their offices? To get you to stay there because they're going to work you into the ground. So they try to look for other ways to keep you satisfied. But most people who work at Google are also thinking what? I'm going to leverage this somewhere. When I leave here after 2 years, I've got Google on my resume. Whereas the old day, it was, how do I get into Google and work my way up the ladder? So job satisfaction is different from today. But we've trained an entire generation, which is nothing wrong with it, to look at the next opportunity. And the next opportunity is not always within an organization. The average length of time somebody stayed in their first job used to be 14 months. Now it's less than a year. Okay? Because people get in, they realize what they like, they don't like, and they leave. Okay? So let's take a look at this for a minute. So about 70% of people that are in a workforce are actively looking for another job. Now think about that. They're actively looking for another job. Now I'm not calling anyone out in here, okay? We're gonna hope this is a different place. But hot jobs, of the old days is different. All right, people are always looking. And the reason they're looking is they're looking for fulfillment. What's the number one reason why people leave a job? Do y'all know? Don't like it. Why don't they like it? Nope. 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 Boss. They can't get along or don't like the management style of their boss. Problem though, you go find a new job for more money, for more fulfillment, for being happier. How long until you're not happy in that job? Like if we went to a Ritz-Carlton right now and we said, we're gonna go stay at the Ritz-Carlton in Atlanta, you'd walk in and be like, this place has got it going on. If you stayed there for a week, what are you gonna start noticing? Problems. You're gonna start going, look, like we stayed last week in Vegas. My wife and I went out there for my birthday. We stayed at the Encore, superb hotel. The first day, they forgot to clean our room completely. Nobody showed up all day. And we went downstairs and our answer was, to be at a hotel like this, I'm like, we are so sorry we made a mistake. But you're like, oh God, and it's like, this is a great place. We're not staying at Planet Hollywood, okay, where you can hear through the walls. This is a nice place. We went because it was really, really cheap. But when it's 110 degrees, you can get good deals. Okay, but that's what happens. And so we get unhappy. We look at other reasons to look for fulfillment, money, right? So if the average person takes a $10,000 job pay raise, do the math on that. What's your take home? How much? $10,000 is less than $1,000 a month. After taxes, $500. So it's not the financial. And our generation that we've trained you younger ones is the fact that you can have whatever you want now. But yet it's like momentum is built and financial security is built over time because you start getting better and better buying power within the industry, okay? 25% of people are unsatisfied, or 75% of people are unsatisfied with their life. If you ask them, are you happy? Most people will go, nah, not really. How many people are in debt? Not in this room. How many people are in debt, living at 100 to 110% of their financial security, don't have anything for savings? There was a stat that was put out recently, like 70% of Americans don't have enough money to pay 2 months of bills, should they not be able to work. I get it if you're under 30. That's not uncommon. But we're talking people who are 60 and 70 who are living means to means, right? We look at a cell phone. How much is a new iPhone going to be next week when it comes out? $1 billion? Yeah, about that. But there are going to be people standing in line thinking that's going to give them the next sense of happiness because they're not missing out, okay? What we look at is when we look at happiness, we look at joy. What's interesting is over time, you can't see this at the bottom, this is 1973. This is essentially present day. The overall happiness in the world has gone down in the United States, okay? Now you can look at some ups and downs. This is post-Vietnam. This is, kind of near Reagan's time, and then it slipped and, whatever, okay? And if you remember when Reagan came in, you guys, I can't say remember. When Reagan came into office, Mark, I've known Mark a long time. Mark, what was his whole message? You remember? Prosperity. Make America great. Prosperity, self-actualization. You can have whatever you want. Just go out there and do it. And if you watch the CNN show about the 80s, there was this pride that came with it. People achieving and finding happiness. But what went with it was spending, okay? Well, what happened around this time? Well, you have 9/11, you have a variety of different things, but you also have the internet. And while we all leverage the internet for amazing work, we have one other issue. We stop face-to-face interactions. We feed off of people, energy-wise. You get around people, we change. You have a dog in a room with other dogs, they perk up, they play, they have fun, they bite, they nip, but they're happy. You leave a dog by itself forever, it gets unhappy. It's the same with human beings, okay? So this line is the overall in-person social interaction. This line is internet hours. Sleep goes down, and so does happiness. So the Generation Z and the millennials, you guys were around with Snapchat, or not Snapchat, AIM and communication. So in-depth relationships are different. So I always tell leaders, you don't have to have more face-to-face interactions. You just have to have shorter ones, and you can do it through other ways, okay? But the getting together on a Sunday afternoon and everyone sitting around talking doesn't happen anymore, all right? This is a cartoon that I like because what it speaks to is this man pushes this rock to the top of the hill. And we always think that success is going to bring us happiness. Success is going to drive us to the point where if I do that, I'm going to be happy. For how long? It's fleeting. In fact, there's a very large study that showed that Olympic athletes, after they win gold medals, fall into depressions because they've achieved the highest level in their field that they worked their entire life for. And then they get done and they go, that's it? I mean, what's the news cycle? 72 hours max for drama and trauma? So success is going to be much shorter than that. So people leave and they're like, wow, I'm going to Whole Foods and nobody knows who I am. And they've lost that drive and that fight, okay? One of the things that I've really come to notice and working with better and better and more successful athletes is that they all say this: I don't know why I'm unhappy. I have everything I've ever wanted in my life, and I'm unhappy. And it's not that they're clinically depressed, they're stuck in Suckville, where we're trained to see the problems of life, not the opportunities. If you walk by somebody and go, hey, how you doing? That's okay. Or if in this room, hey, did you have a good weekend? Yeah, it was good. I didn't get enough sleep. Had to do this, run some errands. If you walk by in an airport, you walk by somebody, hey, how you doing? They're like, you talk to me? You talking to me? All right, we got a crazy guy over here. Because you just said hey to him. They don't know what to do. We actually read off of social cues of facial expressions, okay? So when you say, how you doing, the first inclination is always, oh, I'm tired. Oh man, I'm worn out. Oh God, work is brutal. Like I want somebody to call, you don't know what to do if you say, I'm having the best frickin' day of my life. Dude, Okay, what happened? I want some of that, okay? Success doesn't breed happiness. It is a part of it. The achievement part is important, okay? But we've all been focused on success. I remember sitting in class my junior year in college, and a kid was having an argument with our professor, and this was 1993, and he said, if I make $60,000 a year, I'll never need to make another dollar in my life. And the professor was like, you're crazy. And this was 1993, $60,000 a year was a lot of money. I mean, it wasn't like it was 1943, but still. Now, you know, we can see on social media and Twitter, people standing by cars and saying they make millions of dollars on a click, right? We've been promising everything is faster, quicker, and easier. All right, so let's talk about Suckville. And Suckville, to me, came about because people would come in and they would always do the same thing. First of all, I'm not happy, I'm not fulfilled, something's wrong. You start talking to them and it's, I thought by now I'd be up here. I thought I'd have this by now. And I'd say, well, where are you? Well, I'm here. So to me, Suckville is the space between where you are and where you think you should be. That space is where we live every day. And that space is Suckville. Because we're not achieving what we think we should, and we're discounting what we have. And it's a really hard place to be. In business, it spreads like a virus. Organizations. Your customers, by the way, are coming in, and they're in Suckville too. Why? Why are they coming to you? They want to achieve this. In their mind, they're watching their competitors do what? A great ad, a great product, a great system, something. And all of a sudden, they're looking at themselves going, we're not good enough. And they have to do things. And so as a result, sometimes that have to do things destroys them. Have you guys ever listened to the podcast Business Wars? Who has? The Coca-Cola, Pepsi one? Coca-Cola had to do something because Pepsi was winning taste tests. They couldn't accept that their market share was good enough. And despite the fact that their market share was always flip-flopping. But somebody got it in their head, from my interpretation, that it wasn't good enough. So they changed their formula. New Coke? Anybody have tried it? Okay. So we have to look at our reality. Our reality is always good enough. But people always live one step below, you know, where they think they should be, and it's frustrating. Okay? So when I was flying back from Orlando a couple years ago when I was working in the pharmaceutical industry, which I hated. And I walked up, one thing I can't understand, if you fly through Orlando, their TSA line is the worst in the country. Despite the fact that that city maximizes line time. You would think that Disney would go over there and say, we're going to help you on your TSA line. Okay? Because it is awful. Okay? But I walk over, it's a Friday, it's 3 o'clock. I didn't want to be traveling on a Friday. I'm flying home to see my family, and I turn the corner. Now I had like 2 hours to get to my flight, and I turn the corner, and I'm like an hour in the TSA line. And one of the things I hate flying out of Orlando on an afternoon is every family tries to get their kid 4 more hours in the park. So every kid is tired, sweaty, stinks, and they're miserable, okay? And it's like, great, now I'm gonna go have to get on the bus at Southwest and fly home when everyone's miserable. So I turn the corner and it hit me. I am pissed off that I'm having to sit in this TSA line. Because what am I gonna do, go get on the other side and get a Diet Coke and sit at my gate? Like, I have plenty of time to make my flight. If I was going to Hawaii, would I feel the same way? See, my reality was being defined by the fact that I didn't like my job. I was miserable having to be there on a Friday afternoon, and I see the line. If I was loving what I did, or accepted what I did, and was going on vacation, I'd look at the line and go, shit, it's 1 hour, we got plenty of time to get to our vacation, I'm good to go. I allowed that to start bleeding into other facets of my life, right? Y'all see what I'm talking about here? Okay. Let's take a look at Andrew Luck. Anybody have him in their fantasy football league? Okay, that's a good thing. When you watched Andrew Luck's press conference, did y'all see anything? He looked defeated. He was exhausted. He was exhausted of having to fight the fight every day to be at a level that he thinks he has to play at. And it's exhausting. Here's a secret. Professional athletes, I would probably argue less than 50% are happy in their jobs. That's shocking. Musicians are not very happy in their jobs. What do they tell you? Man, I just want to make music. I don't want to have to travel the country in buses, be away from my family. Pro athletes, the demands. What is it about a pro athlete that gets them? is it's having to live up to the standard every single day is exhausting. To be that character is exhausting. We did a podcast 2-3 weeks ago with Wright Thompson from Sports Illustrated, and he shared a story about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan goes by Michael, but in his family he goes by Mike. But the only person that really called him Mike was his dad, who's now dead. And he said Michael Jordan's exhausted and lonely. And he had to, in his book, he talks about this where he says Michael Jordan has a mask, and it's the mask that's eating his face. Because his perception of who he has to be, where if he says, I want to go to China right now, they'd fire up the jet at Birmingham and he'd be in China tomorrow morning. Nobody would tell him no because he's Michael Jordan, okay? Until he met his new wife. She's of a Cuban immigrant family, and the first meeting they went to with his dad, the dad sat down and said, now what do you do for a living? Had no idea who Michael Jordan was. And it just has changed him 100%. That's what I saw when I saw Andrew Luck. What he said he wanted to do was travel the world with his wife and be with his family. The burden and pressure of having to live up to something he probably doesn't enjoy wasn't what he wanted. He was stuck in Suckville. Michael Phelps, greatest male athlete we've ever seen in our generation. 20-something gold medals, only 3 alternative medals. Wanted to commit suicide after the last Olympics. And is now advocating for treatment of depression and anxiety and factors. How can somebody who's that successful in every facet of his life, has that much money in his name, be unhappy? Because the mind can't be. And so what my whole goal to help you guys out here today is not to go, shit, this world's bleak and sucks, is instead,
what are we doing here?
Yeah, what are we doing here? Okay, is instead, I'm gonna give you some tools how to break it, okay? Because I wanna build positive momentum with you guys, not get caught in the rut of life. Okay, so let's take a look at the symptoms. Any of you guys watch the show Doomsday Preppers? They get crazier and crazier the more time they spend around each other. Like one day it's like, dude, I'm gonna get some canned goods and some guns because shit's gonna happen. 3 weeks later, it's like, dude, we got a nuclear bomb thing in the back and I got a salt lick and I've got iodine pills. And it's like, dude, where did you go crazy? Because you get around like-minded people who start talking to you about all the worries of life. Like, you ever flown on an airplane next to somebody who's terrified to fly? What's that noise? What is that doing? It's like, hell, I didn't even notice that. What the hell are you talking about? And next thing you know, you're like, shit, they're right. Okay? And you're scared. It's the same way about Suckville. If we walk around all the time like, yo, what's up? And it's like Eeyore, everyone's energy is going to change. All right? But more importantly, if you walk around like Eeyore, your energy is going to change. And you're going to attract that same crap to you on a daily basis. And what are you going to get? People are like, yo, life sucks too. I get it. Yeah, I know. Okay, so we got to change it. The first symptom of Suckville, when you're stuck in suck, is the idea that you are frustrated with where you are. Now let me explain. I can look in the mirror at my body and go, you're fat, okay? And I am, but I don't care. I really don't. Like I had macaroni and cheese and a cookie, and I'm gonna have cupcakes or cheesecake when we go back for your birthday, right? Yeah, and I'm gonna eat it and enjoy the hell out of it, okay? And I'll just buy bigger pants. Right now I have no motivation to do anything about it. So I can't get frustrated, okay? Now, here's the deal. If I was frustrated because I felt, I need that for self-esteem, I need that, now all of a sudden, every time I look in the mirror, what am I gonna see? That I'm overweight, that I don't like what I'm at, okay? If you're unhappy with where you are, you have to be aware that your mind is gonna focus on confirmation constantly. Constantly, constantly, constantly. It's always gonna see the negative and stuff. If Kevin and I go to dinner, and we go to like his favorite place, like Mama Goldberg's or something like that, right? You like that place now? No, listen, I'm from South Louisiana. I do not understand Mama Goldberg. Don't get it. Okay, anyway.
It's a Booker thing.
I know it is. That's why I brought it up. Okay? It's not like they're the first people who ever put cheese on Doritos. Give me a break. Okay? We were doing that when I was a kid. Okay. But if we go and I say, let's go to Perry's and have dinner, and he goes, I hate that place. Okay? Like me, I hate P.F. Chang's. Hate it. Because every time I go in P.F. Chang's, it doesn't matter if there's nobody working there. Have a seat. It will be about 15 minutes. I'm like, there's not a freaking soul in the building. Okay? It's Panda Express times 3 on the cost experience. Okay. But if I walk in and the waitress doesn't come over right away, he goes, see how much this place sucks? Or the food doesn't come out exactly perfect. He's cued and reminded to not like things because the mindset already guided it. So we have to be aware of focusing on what we think we should be versus what we are. We're actually pretty incredible people. You guys are brilliantly innovative. And while it may not be perfect, it's hell of a lot better than being absent of it. Take what you have and make the most of it. I always say Chick-fil-A does not complain that they don't sell cheeseburgers. They're not worried about the... Do you think Chick-fil-A was really worried about the line at Popeyes last week? They're going to run out soon. Somebody put up a great meme and goes, Chick-fil-A went, did something happen this week? Like it didn't even impact them. It didn't even change, right? Symptom 2, we get impatient. We live in a world where our overall thought pattern is going shorter and shorter and shorter. I had somebody tell me something, and I don't know if it's true or not, but our ability to pay attention is equating to that of a goldfish now. And if you look at kids in school, teachers have to get better and better at it's not sit in class for 45 minutes and listen to some drivel. It's got to move it fast, quick. You give a young kid an iPad, and this is a great test. You put it on a movie from Disney, they'll watch it. But if you give them the choices with YouTube, they won't make it through a single video. They'll click it, boom, click it, and it's quick, it's fast, it's quick, it's fast. And our minds are being treated like we're on crack now. And marketers and everybody are figuring that out. Faster, quicker, faster, quicker, faster, quicker, okay? Symptom 3 is that we get frustrated when we see other people succeed or other people have things. It kills us, right? Unbelievable. Because we see other people, but we never actually take on other people's burdens. And when we look at another person and we romanticize or are jealous of other people's success, it's usually the thing that we're most insecure about in our own self. Like if I look at somebody else and go, yeah, they're doing a great job, but I'm not insecure, I'm like, good for them. But if I'm insecure in that area, I'm like, God, why are they doing that? How are they doing that? That bothers me, okay? So we have to be aware when we look at the world around us that we're not carrying other people's burdens. We can see all the success in the world. How many people have you seen that you're like, God, they look like the happiest couple, and you come to find out they were miserable? They can put on the face, but they can't have a conversation behind the scenes, okay? Same way with the workplace. Like I always love these, not to offend anybody, top 40 under 40s. I always love the best workplaces. I'm like, how do we know? Because their PR department wrote the answers. It's kind of like, I love it when a company goes, did y'all win one of those? I hope not. Okay. Hell no, we don't do that crap. No. Yeah, we don't submit. We don't submit. It's like United Way. When I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, they wanted to tout that we had one of the largest United Way fundraising campaigns ever. You know why? They shamed you. It was automatic until you opted out. Anybody else have to do that? You have to like go to HR and go, I want out. Are you sure? I mean, go through the line at a grocery store. Do you want to donate to sick kids? No, it's okay. Oh, you're an asshole. I don't want to donate to sick kids today. Okay? And it's a weird feeling as they shame you, and that's what we see with other people. Okay? So, symptom 4, we get resistant to coaching and criticism. When we're in Suckville, we don't want to hear you could be better. In fact, a lot of my athletes hate, you're doing really good when they're in this state. Like, I'm not doing good. It's like they can't accept where they are. So what happens is we start rejecting feedback because we would rather be stuck in our own misery than breaking free from it. So we got to have a distinct difference on how we accept feedback and search it out. When you're stuck in suck, you got to search out mentors and helpers, not get stuck in the rut. You got to get out of your comfort zones and find people outside of you to make you better. And when we get into this, we get really judgmental. Really judgmental, okay? Judgment unravels everything because we can never live up to the standards we set for ourselves. It's never good enough. I'm never happy enough. It's like an Alabama football fan. We didn't win by enough. Okay? It's true. Am I right? Y'all have never lost a game either. You never got beaten. Ran out of time. Yeah. Okay. So what I want you to understand is there are people around you that keep you stuck in suck too. So let's investigate them. Now, don't point fingers or don't name people who don't work here or at home. The first one is the naysayers. Think of this like a village. The naysayer. The naysayer breaks you down because it's easier to tell another person they won't succeed. You can't do that. You can't. You need more. I mean, no, there's no way you're going to do that. You're not that good. That's what they're saying. But the reason they're doing that is they have their own insecurities and they don't want to see you succeed. But they're the ones that say, no, you can't do it. I mean, in business, I hear that all the time. You can't do that. Like when I left the academic world to go to pharma, we had 14 other interns and they were like, you're going to get fired. You shouldn't do that. And I said, what are y'all making next year? Well, making a little bit more than we made as interns. I said, okay. For 2 years, yeah. Let's go to dinner tonight because the company that hired me is allowing me to buy y'all's dinner. And they're like, dude, really? Within a year, I had 8 people calling me asking for jobs. They were scared to death to leave the standard of what they knew, even though they were unhappy. Like, I really have a belief. Like when the economic downturn hit, that people, it wasn't the fact that the economy was bad, it was the fact that we were scared that the next thing was going to happen. That's where we live. It's not the fact that you can't succeed, it's afraid that if I give it, and I'd like to have the courage that you do, so I'd rather tell you not to do it. Okay? Like I would love for one of y'all to walk in their office and go, I've got an idea. And I'd love for them to flamethrow you and carve you up and spit you out, and then you come back and say, I made it better. Versus somebody going back over here, don't go in there. Don't do that. Don't talk to Kevin before 10. He's got to let the alcohol go away. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
Easily
11. Do I know Kevin? Okay. All right. The defeated. Okay. These are the people who walk around like this. I mean, it is what it is. I'm miserable. I'm unhappy. I mean, they're like Jerry Springer people. Okay. But the truth is, they don't want you to succeed. And it's not because you're talent, but it's because your success pisses them off about their own self-image. They've already defeated and accepted the fact that they suck. And they're going to be living in suck for the rest of their life. It's like literally when somebody's in a bad relationship and they've just accepted the fact that they're going to be in a bad relationship the rest of their life. I mean, I can't get out of this. It's like, or a bad job. Like, like that old show on Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs. I mean, like how hard did he have to find somebody who was actually happy about sticking their hand up a pipe and pulling out garbage? But there was somebody there who was like, I love my job. Most other people are like, I suck at this job and I can't get a job anywhere else because it's what I've done my whole life. That's not true. But people are defeated because they don't want to put themselves out there. They don't want to put themselves out there because they're afraid they're going to get rejected. So they'd rather see you stay stuck and suck. The fearfuls. They're afraid to take risks and abandon their comfort zone, right? So what happens is people see the risks that are out there and it's just, oh my God, this world is punishing and it's miserable, don't do it. And they'd rather see you stuck and suck, and then the jealous. And these are the hidden ones. They're going to tell you that you're doing great, but they're going to unwind, and when you fail, they're excited because they're scared to death that you're actually happy. This one is the problem. The easier like it is, people. Let's not change anything. Let's not improve anything. It's okay. It's okay. Like I'm scared to death to change because I'd rather take what I know than experience what I don't know. Okay. Social comparison is the driver of Suckville, right? Well, you're always trying to keep up with the Joneses, so I guess we'll have to default on our mortgage and file for bankruptcy now. When you see other people doing things, we start measuring about where we're falling short. We do it in business a lot. We watch what other businesses are doing. And when somebody's having success, what do we always say? Or what do competitors? Oh, they got lucky. I had a neighbor in our old house who, there was another guy in his region that was just dominating every President's Award every single year. And his answer was, well, his dad got him those contacts. So I asked the guy when I said, did your dad work in the industry? He goes, no, he doesn't even live here. Like, his dad didn't give him the business. He hunted it and fought it and did it himself. But the perception was somebody else had it made. Okay? So how do we break free of Suckville? Okay? You always have a choice. The most powerful thing the human mind has is the ability to choose. If you haven't read a book, there's 2 books I'd highly recommend. One is called Man's Search for Meaning. It's by Viktor Frankl. Jammer, you've had to have read this. Okay? Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist that was then interned in the Holocaust at Auschwitz, right? And he kept in his mind looking at it, it's like, how do some people perish and some people make it? Some people physically couldn't survive the atrocities of the Holocaust, but some people were able to survive. And then what happened after they let go? They freed many of the Holocaust in prison. They turned and went right back in to the camps because in their mind they had been defined by this level that they were in. Okay? What he realized was he survived by having a choice to take the atrocities of the situation he was in and imagine himself giving lectures to psychiatrists in the future about how to deal with human suffering. The other book I'd have you read is very similar. It's called The Choice. It's by a lady by the name of Edith Edgar Evers. And she was also in Auschwitz. She's now a psychologist. And they're connected. Viktor Frankl's passed away because he was much older when he was in the Holocaust. But she had a choice. And when she walked into, when she was brought into the Holocaust camp to Auschwitz, they said, she walked in with her sister and her mother. And they said, sisters? And she said, mother, sister. Mother had to go to the chamber. Sister went with her. So she's had to live with the choice her whole life that she had her mother. She didn't know that that was going to happen, but in her mind, she's fought it. And so both of these authors have both demonstrated the most powerful emotion that we have. No matter how much we feel broken, we still have a choice to face the challenge we're in and start creating. It may not go according to our plan, but we ultimately have the choice to change our future and our experience of where we are. If we look at our society today, and I think it's fascinating the amount of people who are willing to give up control because somebody told them it's how they should feel versus fighting to create their own reality and their own fulfillment. Innovation always starts with the mind. It never starts with a product or an outcome. It always starts with somebody who looks at it and says, how can we do it better? How can I be better in where I'm at? We ultimately have a choice to do whatever we want to do in our life. It may not be fair. Your circumstances may suck. Your circumstances may be brutal, but you have a choice to change those circumstances. One thing that I want everyone to understand is that the game of life is not a race. It is not a measuring spot at the end of the year where we look and say, who got the most? Because money and success do not equal happiness. What actually has been shown to create the greatest happiness is the self-fulfillment that we feed to ourselves along our own journey. So I can say, I'm really happy with the fact that I mowed 3 yards. Boom. Cool. That made me happy. Okay? So you can't control what happens to you, but you always can control your response to the circumstance. And this is a picture. I've always been fascinated by POWs, because POWs, the way they break their will is they took all their choices away from them. They took away their choices and predictability of when they're going to eat, when they're going to get sunlight, when they're going to bathe. And how the Vietnam POWs survived, does anybody know? They used a communication system in the Hanoi Hilton where they developed, based on Morse code, how to communicate. And that was detailed on the number, the letters, and they would communicate by knocking on the walls. They never had that choice taken away from them. And it helped them psychologically change the heinous circumstances. I read a book called Ghost Soldiers, and it was about the survivors of the Bataan Death March. And those guys were in the Philippines for 3 years in World War II. And when they got there, the POWs had created roads in the POW camp. And on Friday night, they'd have theater. On Sunday morning, they'd have service. And the Japanese had no idea what they were doing. But they created their community because they had the choice to change their circumstances, even though they sucked. To them, it was survival. The last thing is, or one of the last things, is when we feel overwhelmed and we get in Suckville, is we have to change our mindset to what's important now. What is the single most important thing I need to do today, within the next couple minutes, within the next couple hours? We get overwhelmed by our task list, but most of the time, if we write it down and go forward, it goes away pretty quickly. Like, how many of you have laid in bed at night and worried as you're falling asleep and written down what you had to do, and you wake up the next morning and you go, oh, that's all I had to do? That's no big deal. But the bird, when it's stuck in the bird cage, is creating a lot of disruption. Okay, so to break free and to change what you're doing and to make an improvement in everything you're doing, okay, what I want you guys to do is follow just the simple act. Be aware of what's going on around you. Don't judge it. Things suck, they suck. Okay? Feel bad for the Bahamas. Shit happens. Okay? They're going to rebuild like they always do. Okay? It sucks. Support them, everything. But we have to act. So the act is be aware and acknowledge the current situation. It sucks. It's okay to say it sucks. The difference is I'm not going to stay stuck and suck. The C, we got to make a choice. What am I going to do? Am I going to sit and bitch about it? Am I going to feel powerless? Or am I going to find power within my choice? I'm going to find power within my choice. And the T is I'm going to take action. My experience is in today's society, the biggest failing that we have is we don't execute very well. We talk about it a lot, we raise a lot of money, but we actually don't execute in business. Like, I love listening to people raise money for business, and then I want to see where they are in 5 and 10 years after they ever did anything. Because it's like they didn't execute, but they can raise money. Okay? Now I think that's critical. You got to raise money too, but take action and do what you say you're going to do. Right? Okay, that'll break you free of suck. There any questions about this? It was about 35 minutes, so that was hopefully good. Okay? Any questions? If you guys go to my website, BhrettMcCabe.com, go to Telegraph, there are some resources there for you guys for free that y'all can download. Any questions? Online, out of line? Y'all are like, shit, now I feel down and low and sucking.
Are you a nihilist?
I'm a nihilist, yeah, no.
One thing that I didn't hear you bring up was the role that faith
Yeah.
plays in some of this. I mean, do you see, especially with like the athletes that you deal with, is there a common thread that some of them, the role that faith plays in kind of getting out of
Yeah.
if that makes
So I see it two ways, okay? One of the ways I've seen it is, and I had this with a very faith-based player recently, I feel guilty for feeling this way because God has blessed me with so many bounties that I shouldn't feel this way. What I always flip it on the other side is from a faith perspective, they never said it was going to be easy. It's a trial and a tribulation. I think all journeys have to have three major things. They have to have faith, belief, and trust. You have to have faith that things are going to get better. You got to have belief that you are going to be the factor that's going to do it, and your process that you trust is going to drive you to the outcome. And if we can find the faith and the belief, just sometimes one of the biggest things that we can do in this state right here is awareness, is accepting. And faith allows us to accept because we know there's a greater plan involved. So that's why it's a very strong factor for people. I was raised Catholic. I still pray the rosary on a nightly basis because that's my faith center to ask for strength. Okay? So it's one of those things for me that it's just, for me, that's where I always have people find their faith. Mindfulness, meditation will work in that same perspective. What I love about faith is that it's your personal relationship that you're working on. So if you have something, whether it's meditation or you write or you read or get up in the morning and you read Bible verses or you get up and you listen to a podcast and that's your investment in you, in your relationship with your soul, then go for it. And I think it's people tend to be in that situation. Some people say, I'm not a faith-based person. They get up and run every morning for 30 minutes and that's their meditation. I'm like, sounds like one to me. I mean, it may not be what I choose, but it works. Yeah, Mark.
I suffered from a lot of depression when I was very young, in high school and through college. One thing that, you were talking about happiness, and one thing that I found that helped me tremendously was keeping a gratefulness journal. So I'd recommend any of you do this for a weekend or do it for 1 week, where every day you write down 3 things that you're very happy about or that you're grateful for.
Yeah.
They can be super small things. Like, I paid my bills today.
Yeah. Because behavior change, mental behavior change, it becomes contagious and creates momentum.
Yeah, and it just kind of goes to that awareness.
Yeah.
It makes you aware of those positives.
100%.
Reinforces the positives. And
Yeah. And to the point to Cliff's question, how many people when you pray do you say thanks? We always ask, but very few people actually give thanks. And so learning to say, you know what, I'm thankful to be, we don't do it very often, to say thank you. I mean, your significant other, when's the last time you told them thank you and they're like, what do you want? Nothing, I just want to tell you thank you. I mean, thank you. Well, okay, what did you do? Nothing, okay? But Mark is exactly right. It's a very proven fact to focus on gratitude. And what you'll do is you'll see, and you got to train yourself to see it because we overlook it all day. You know how many beautiful things, like my mom used to always tell me, look in the ground, and when you're walking on the concrete, the flower that pushes up through the concrete, how much effort it had to take to get to the sunlight. We just walk right by it like it's nothing. When I was in the pharmaceutical industry, we'd go to New York City for meetings. They'd always send out a letter and say, please talk to the hotel staff, the maids and cleaning staff. Many times they're physicians from other countries that are so thankful to be in the United States. And you walk right by them. And Ed Reed, the Hall of Fame safety for the Baltimore Ravens, has a very famous, that's gone viral, interview he did with Joe Buck where he said he'd sit in the locker room and he'd look at his younger guys and they'd all take their gear off and they'd throw it in the garbage but not be close to the garbage can. And he said, then I looked up and the guys, and the men and women that were cleaning our garbage cans were usually volunteer firemen who just wanted to be around the team. And he's like, you're that good that you can't pick up your own shit? And the people who are risking their lives for you have to come in and clean up after you? Be grateful for where you are. Be appreciative of what you have. And I think it's pretty powerful. Like, And as a result, one of the things I've started doing is when I leave a hotel room, I try to leave it cleaner than I found it. I clean things up, I pick it up, I move it, I get everything in the garbage can, I move it out from underneath the desk because somebody's got to come behind me and clean it, except for at the Encore where they didn't come in for a day. Okay?
One of the things I've noticed as a parent is, my 3-year-old breaks a toy, and it's literally the worst thing that's ever happened in her life, and so she acts that way.
Yeah.
Over time, you have perspective of what's really bad and what's really good.
Yeah.
You see phases and age ranges of people.
Well, early on, the part of our brain that develop, that part of your brain doesn't develop until you're about 18 to 22, okay, which is the ability to make high-level cognitive mental decisions. So it is the worst thing that's ever happened to her in this moment. And she doesn't have the understanding that I can replace it. Okay, so there's that there. But also, what happens is when she acts like that, what happens? We soothe them. So we teach in our society: you cry, I soothe. So what do we just teach? I cry about other things, you'll come soothe me. Now, it's not that automatic where we think, oh, you're going to come soothe me. But it's so overlearned that if I cry, look what gets more attention on Yelp, a good review or bad review? Why is this society so offended? Why are y'all, the young ones, why is your colleagues so offended by everything? It's not that you're really offended. You want other people to feel your offense too. Like, don't you think that's the worst thing that ever happened? Not really. So they'll just keep posting it until somebody gets offended. That's the same thing. So you're better off to say, oh, I'm sorry. And then like a dog, if you walk into a house and a dog's jumping on you, what do they tell you to do?
Don't pay attention to it.
Just turn your back to it and the dog will sit down. If you do that to kids, they will stop.
Well, and this is sort of a side question to that, but
Yes, 100%.
So, in my life, the worst thing that's ever happened to me, my mom passed away when I was 24 years old.
Yeah.
And I would say I'm a happier person after that because of the perspective that gave me of what true unhappiness is.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question really is more about, as life goes on and you experience ebbs and flows of happiness, does that give you more perspective to lean on?
So I did a podcast. I did a podcast yesterday with a guy who's at 24 was an out of control heroin addict who was on his way to prison. And I asked him, I said, what is it to be at rock bottom? Because I've never been there. I've been in pain. I've hurt when my dad passed away. I've had disappointments. I've had different things. And I've battled depression and anxiety in my life too. And the thing that this guy said is, the thing about rock bottom is we can always go a little worse. So when you think you hit it, life shows you, no, we went deeper. But until it kills me, it hasn't broken me. So what happens about our depths and our pain is that we're amazingly resilient people. We've had some of the worst days of our life, and I know some people in this room and in our lives and around us have had brutal days, okay? I've worked with parents, I've worked with kids whose parents, they didn't know their names, they didn't know who was gonna raise them, and yet they still put stuff together. We can take that stuff and still fight through it. It doesn't change that we had to go through it, but what it does is it teaches us that we are really much more resilient than we think we are. The pain hurts miserably, but we can still take the next step. We can still see one thing in front of us. My buddy Chad Metcalf, who was the Navy SEAL who spoke to a crew in here at one point, he said what he learned going through BUDS was, as brutal as life is, I could still pick one rock to find to run to. And when I had broken leg and a stress fracture in my leg and I was running 8 miles a day or a time, I could still pick a rock and make it to it. I couldn't be that broken. I could still find. Now we can break people. Fastest way to break somebody is not let them sleep. You will break them within days, okay? Because that's a recovery zone, all right? But if you don't, people who have young kids, you don't sleep, you're miserable. So you're not gonna be broken. But we have to learn to use the things in the pain in our life as motivation to grow and change.
What are some of the commonalities that you've seen among athletes who have been able to perform at the very highest level? Is there a psychological profile or some common threads that you've seen between them that separates them? I mean, if you just think of, let's take a guy like Michael Jordan, certainly incredible physical gifts, but his physical gifts were not so much different than the other people he was playing against that it was a purely physical difference. Or even a Tiger Woods, for instance, who you know, it seemed like his body didn't change, but he had a psychological difference and some things happened in his life and he fell off a cliff performance-wise. So I guess I'm just trying to suss out.
The best athletes in the world, the best leaders in the world are the most insecure human beings I've ever been around in my life. But they use the insecurity as a fuel to go to the details, not to the global. Does that make sense? So Michael Jordan is intensely insecure. That's why athletes put posses around him that tell him how great they are all the time. I tweeted out something about a year ago that said that elite athletes are like supermodels. They're extremely insecure and everyone thinks they're beautiful. But if you ask a supermodel, they'll tell you that they're fat, they're overweight, they have a problem. Okay, they don't believe their own beauty. Most elite people use the angst of the insecurity to make themselves better, and they find an edge by investing in the details that make them successful. So Tiger Woods is going to believe that somebody's going to take him out. Like, he wouldn't go in the locker room because his dad said locker rooms are for losers. So he would not go in the locker room and hang around where other people had played because locker rooms are for losers. You get dressed in the parking lot, you put your shoes on in the parking lot, and you go to the range because you're there to beat people. If you hang around, you're going to learn to accept their losing abilities. So he was so insecure that he doesn't know how to form relationships. And there's a very famous line in that article that Wright Thompson wrote where he said he would hang out in Vegas with Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley and Derek Jeter. And he'd go to a bar and he didn't have a girlfriend or anything, and he'd be like, man, I want to go meet her. And he's like, I don't know how to do it. And Derek Jeter goes, hi, I'm Tiger Woods. Like, he doesn't know how to form relationships. And unless everybody is telling him how great he is, that's the only way he can do it. Michael Jordan only puts people around him that give him the okay. It got Tiger Woods in trouble because his agent wouldn't stand up to him about what the things he was doing. Okay? So if you look at politicians, they're very insecure, but how they solve it are the decisions that they make that feed them in the short term. And it's the motivation. Most people who are very happy and content, they're not going to put themselves out there for that scorn. They don't need it. So the best athletes, the most successful people are the most insecure. The difference with the best is they found a plan to eliminate it or work through it by something that builds their formula for success. Does that answer it?
One more?
So, Bhrett,
Yeah.
we're in the communications industry, obviously technicians. We talked a little bit earlier about are the generations and the moment we're in with technology and how it's feeding some of the problems that we have. Any advice on communication and how?
I would speak to their Suckville, 100%. And I've always had an idea, and Kevin knows this, about you create dissonance, you give them a solution, and then you confirm it with your data. We want to just show people, like, hey, we're the best organization. If you're not speaking to what they're sucking about, if you don't speak to their Suckville and make them aware of why they suck, they won't move. People won't change. So you speak to their dissonance. You speak to their level of Suckville. Then you give them a solution and you confirm it with your data or your product. You'll get them every time. So go to their level of Suckville. You're unhappy. I mean, look at diet pills. Okay, diet supplements are one of the fastest selling products in the digital marketplace, and it's just a total fraud. Okay, but it's like, you're unhappy with where you are. Look at the people working out. You want to look like them? In other words, you loser, you fat, out of shape person who can't do it yourself. Take this pill, and I've proven to you it works on a fake study. People buy them. They take them for 3 weeks and they leave. They quit. But they signed up for 6 months. They spoke to their dissonance. Alexander Shannara, 100%. Speaks to their dissonance. 1,000%. Or is he a client of yours?
Just a friend.
Just a friend. He's brilliant. I mean, it's Morris Bart in Baton Rouge was the same way. Okay? Politicians do it all the time. I think Obama was we talked about this on the podcast. Obama was the finest creator of dissonance in the history of presidential races I've ever seen. You are unhappy with where you are. You're miserable. You have no hope. I'm going to bring you hope. Didn't actually have a plan. I'm just going to give you hope. And Trump did the same thing. He just did it on the flip side. So it was one side to the other side. The first person that can come out in this election cycle, whether it's Trump or somebody else, and say, this is where you are, these are the pain points, I'm going to show you how to solve it, will win. And I actually think probably Trump will do it, because I don't see somebody who's got that plan on the other side formulated. They're all fighting with what's wrong on the other side. That's why nobody could beat Obama. It was always what Obama does wrong. Nobody ever lays out the plan If you can get people to buy into your plan, they'll trust you. Politics and marketing is nothing but psychology.
You say like in marketing too, that go back to your actor, like making a choice. That do we have power as an agency to just make it? Because a lot of clients are like,
Yeah.
like they're afraid to make a choice. So if you make it for them, does that kind of?
It helps, but you got to get to where, when they're all over the place, they don't know what the problem is. Okay, so as a business, if I see you guys, I'm like, I want that. What do you want? I want that. What is it? I want all that. And then when you don't get it, you get pissed. You didn't clearly define the problem. You also didn't get to know what the pain point was. Okay, get to the pain point and tell me how you're going to solve it. You're going to continue to struggle if this doesn't change. And what happens is I go, I'm not interested. I go back to my office, I look and go, shit, he's right. I'm continuing to struggle because I haven't done that. I mean, we're launching a brand new MySpace campaign that will blow y'all's mind, right, Philip? Just a little behind. So, I mean, you got to speak to what the problem is. You got to go to it. Listen. There are certain industries where it's very easy to live in dissonance. People are naturally there. They just service those. That's why there's so many gyms in this world. Okay. When you do the jobs that y'all do, you have to define why people want to get better. Sometimes it's the shiny, sexy thing that they're seeing from somebody else, but it's the other thing is some people don't realize it's even possible to do certain things. But what do? I mean, I went to that Grant Cardone conference 2 years ago. Have any of you ever follow him? Okay. You ever been to one? Yeah, have you been? Which one did you go to? Okay, how many people were there? Yeah, so I went to the one in Vegas, sold out Mandalay Bay, had some great speakers. Did you get anything of value out of it?
I said no to some upsells. I think that's about it.
That's about it, yeah. Yeah, we bought ClickFunnels, yeah, okay. But I turned to my wife and I said, this is the greatest business model possible. 98% of the people will never change after they leave here, and they're all gonna come back next year because this year will be the year. He's speaking to their dissonance. He figured out a formula on how to make money, and he's doing it. He's brilliant, okay? He's a used car salesman from South Louisiana. He's a hustler. But now what's happened in the last, how many business conferences have I now seen come across my page? Rachel Hollis, and they're blowing up because people want to go there and like, I want to change my life. They're not going to change. It's too damn hard. It's too hard. And it's funny. You know what none of them ever want to put on their panel? A behavioral scientist, like a psychologist. Because they'll say, well, it doesn't really work. So they don't engage them. It's funny, except for Dr. Phil.